.NET 6 is close to completion and is due to be released in November 2021. In this video, we'll have a look at .NET 6 new features using ASP.NET Core and Visual Studio 2022. We'll look at 4 new .NET 6 features, how to implement them, and how they differ from .NET 5. And stay tuned to the end of this video where I'll show you how you can start using .NET 6 right now. Now for more ASP.NET Core tutorials, visit roundthecode.com, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/roundthecode, and download our code examples at roundthecode.com/code-examples. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is the console template. Now in front of me I've got an ASP.NET Core 5 application, and ASP.NET Core runs off the console template. So this is an example of how it works. So we've got our program class here, which is wrapped within a namespace, and we've got our main static method. Within this main static method, it builds up the host builder, configures it using the startup, and then runs the application for us. Now there's quite a lot of code here, but with .NET 6 we can actually get rid of some of it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to convert this project into a .NET 6 project. So edit the project file and change it to .NET 6. Now that we've done that, we can get rid of a lot of this boiler template code. We can get rid of the namespace, the program class, and the main static method. We need to import our startup because it's no longer in that namespace. All we need to do now is we need to just call the build method and the run method, because that was what was originally in the main method, which went to another method. Okay, let's give that a run and see if it's going to work for us. So you can see our application is now running for us, so let's just make sure that it's going to work. So I've got a web API here, so I'm going to run our post method here. I'm just going to give it a team name, call it my team. That, just make sure that's going to work. As you can see, our endpoint is working. So if we go back in here, this is all the code you need to build up a .NET 6 application for ASP.NET Core 6. So the next thing we're going to have a look at is the merge of the program and startup class. Now continuing with removing a lot of unnecessary code, this is what we're going to be doing here. So what we're going to do, so typically with an ASP.NET Core application, you'd have your program class which would build up the host builder, and it'd go into the startup class for all the configurations. But with .NET 6, what you can do is you can merge it all into the program class. And we're going to go ahead and do that now. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove everything in program, and then we're going to go into our startup class. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead, we need to bring in our roundthecode.NET 6, import it into our project because we're going to need it. Then we go in here and we build up our web application by calling create builder, passing in an optional argument. Now we can go back into our startup class, and what we're going to do is everything inside the configure services method, we're going to move out of startup class and we're going to move it into our program class. Now what we need to do is we've got our builder instance here, so we need to go ahead and call that down here. We then need to just make sure that that's a capital S. Like that, so you can see that's now working for us. So the next thing we need to do after this, we need to go back into our startup class, and everything within inside the configure method, what we need to do is we now need to move that into our program class. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now before we do that, we need to create an instance of our app. So the way we do that is we create a local variable, and we call the builder instance and the build method like that. Now we just need to make a few other changes. So the environment is now in the app instance. And there we go, we've done that for us. The last thing we need to do though is we need to run the application. So that's now working for us. So we've pretty much removed everything in the startup class. So we can just go ahead and delete that. So let's now run our application. You can see our application is running for us now. Let's go ahead and do what we did last time. So let's create a new team. We're going to call it My Team. And check that we get a 200 response. There you go. You can see we've got our 200 response there. So if we go back in here, we can see that we can configure the program and the startup class into one file. The next thing we're going to have a look at is minimal APIs. Now, when writing an API in an ASP.NET Core application, you typically have to go down the MVC route. Now, it was possible to use some methods within this use endpoint and do it that way. But with the ASP.NET Core 6, there's a lot easier way of doing it. And I'm going to show you that now. So we've got our team controller in here, and we've got a number of CRUD methods. So we've got our create, read, update, and delete. And all this is doing is it's going into the team service and doing the actual method in there. So what we can do with this is we can eventually remove this, and we're going to move it into our program class. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to find our app.map controllers. And with ASP.NET Core 6, we now got a map get, a map post, a map put, and a map delete. So we can move all our methods from our team controller into our program class. So we're going to start with the map get. Pass in the root for it. So it's going to be team/ID. Now we can go in and pass our parameters. So with this, we can directly call a dependency injection service like our iTeam service. If we go up here, we can see we've set this as a singleton up here. So with minimal APIs in ASP.NET Core 6, we can call it directly like that. We also need to pass in our ID, and we can just simply go ahead, call our team service method like that, and then we can call our read method within that. Call the ID like that, and there we go. It's as simple as that. We're now going to go ahead and do the same thing for all our other CRUD methods. Let's try map post. We only need that as team. We're going to pass in an instance of our team class. I can show you, it's just literally the ID and the name, which you would have seen in earlier examples. We then need to go ahead and update the method. So I'm going to call our create and pass in our instance of team. Do the same for updating. So we're going to change it from to map put. And we need to pass in our ID. So we're going to copy the root in the get method. And we need to pass in our ID as well as our team. Call the update method within team service, and then we're going to pass in our ID and our team. And finally, we need to do the same for delete. So we call our map delete method. We don't need our instance of team there. Call our delete method. There we go. So now that we've done all that, we can go ahead and simply delete our team controller. We don't need it anymore. So now we're going to run that and see if it's going to work for us. You can see our application is running, but you can see in Swagger that we haven't got any routes defined in our documentation. That's interesting, but what we can do is we can see if it's actually going to work for us. So we're going to run our team 1 and we expect it to return null. So we can see our API methods are running, but it's not appearing in Swagger. So what do we need to do with that? So if we go ahead and stop the application now, we need to go back into our program class, and what we can do is we need to just add a new method within the builder.services. So underneath add controllers, what we need to do is we need to call builder.services.add endpoints API Explorer. This will now go ahead and add it into our Swagger documentation. Let's give the application a run again and see if it appears for us in Swagger. So you can see now that our application is now running for us. So we can go ahead and do that. We don't need the ID for this. What we need is the name. So I'm going to call it my team. Let's execute that and make sure we get a 200 response. As you can see, it's returning a 200 response for us. So let's now read that. So let's pass in the ID of 1. Make sure that's executed. And as you can see, that's now returned a response for us for my team. Final thing we're going to have a look at is date only and time only. Now this is long overdue in .NET 6 as we've had this functionality in SQL Server for some time where you could set a field as date only or time only. And finally it's come to .NET 6. So I'm going to show you this in our ASP.NET Core Web API. I'm going to go ahead and create a new controller. We'll create a new MVC controller and we're going to call it date time controller. Now we're going to set up a route for this. We're going to point it to date time. Now we're going to set up an action for this and we're going to call it date only and pass in a HTTP GET method with the root of date-only. Now we're going to go ahead and create a new instance of our date-only struct. So we can find the date-only and it's got a couple of overrides in the constructor. So we've got a parameterless one, we've got one where you pass in the year, the month and the day, and you've got the same thing but you also pass in a calendar. We're going to go for the year, month and the day, so we're going to set the 28th of August 2021. And what we're going to do is we're going to set a date that's a week later. So this has similar methods to the date time. Obviously the date only has the date methods and the time only has the time methods. We're now just going to return that as a JSON. Let's give that a run now and see if it's going to work for us. So our application is running for us, so we've got our method here, so let's give it a run and see if it's going to work for us. You can see there it's returning our date a week later, so the 4th of September 2021, so we can see that's working for us. So now we're going to do a similar thing but using the time only struct. So what we need to do with that now is we're going to go ahead and do a similar thing with the date only but create a time only action. So we're going to update the root and also the method name. We're going to bring all this out. And we call a new instance of our time only struct. And we're going to do it for 6 o'clock. Once again, there's quite a number of overrides here. You've got the parameterless one. You can pass in the ticks. You've got the hour, the minute, hour, minute and second, hour, minute, second and millisecond. We're going to just go for the hour and the minute, so 6 o'clock. And then we're going to pass in another parameter. We're going to add 8 hours to it. So add hours of 8. And we're going to return that once again as a JSON response. Let's give that a run now and see if it's going to work for us. You can see our method is appearing in our Swagger documentation. Let's give that a run and see what response we're going to get. So interesting there, it's returned 2 o'clock. So it's using the 24-hour clock. So once it gets to midnight, it goes back to the next day. So we're adding 8 hours to 6 o'clock and it's returning 2 in the morning. Now this video was recorded in August 2021 and .NET 6 is not due to be released until November. However, you can download Visual Studio 2022 Preview and start using .NET 6 right now. Just make sure you download Preview 3 or above. If you're watching this after .NET 6 has been released, you can just download Visual Studio 2022 as normal. Now thanks very much for watching and make sure you check out our C# 10 new features video.